I'm Sian and I'm a Senior Community Learning Disability Nurse for Oxford Health.
Hello, my name is Julie Auger and I'm a Community Senior Learning Disability Nurse working for South Oxfordshire.
Hi there, my name's Jonathan Barron and I'm a Community Learning Disability Nurse.
It's quite a tough question because we do so many things. We support people with all aspects of their life, right from the minute they're diagnosed until their death in some cases. We do health assessments, mental health assessments. We support people with access to healthcare and reducing those barriers, and also making sure that they have access to information in a way that they understand.
My job role is very changeable. I work in the community. I can have complex cases where there is more than just myself working for the individual, or it could be just me working for that person. Each person is completely different. I work for anyone aged 18 onwards. I work with a transition team, so that's with young people that are coming into adult services. We hold meetings every 3 months so that we don't miss anyone that's transition between each teams. They may not need our services in adulthood, which is absolutely fine. It's just that we're aware of someone who may in the future need our help.
So as a Community Learning Disability Nurse, I support adults who require assessments, advice and support on lots of different healthcare issues. And some of these might be health education, for example, supporting someone who has recently been diagnosed with diabetes. So they might need a bit of specialist support around understanding their diagnosis and how best to manage their health moving forward in their life. I might also support someone around their epilepsy and offer some support and advice around how best to manage this. This could include liaising with their GP, neurologist and other health and social care professionals involved in the person's care.
I work for the South Community Learning Disability team. Learning disability nurses in general can support people right from diagnosis, but we only serve those who are 18 and above. And to meet the criteria for our service, you have to have an IQ of 70 or below. So our team is made up of a whole range of professionals. We have nurses, psychiatrists, psychologists, SALT, physiotherapists, intensive interaction specialists. There are a whole host of professionals that we work with.
So I work with the Oxford City Learning Disability team. We're a team full of different healthcare professionals. These include learning disability nurses, physios, psychologists, speech and language therapists, and occupational therapists too. And we also have a consultant psychiatrist in our team who will often support our more vulnerable patients. We have a multidisciplinary approach to our work and meet on a weekly basis to discuss the referrals that have come in. And the patient is then allocated to a health professional where we complete a core assessment. From this assessment, we will determine which profession is required. So maybe someone has been referred to us for mobility issues, therefore we would recommend being referred to our physio, or likewise they might struggle around their weight, in which case some joint work from our nursing and OT team could support the patient. I personally work with a whole range of different needs, from supporting someone who is having issues with their sleep to another person who needs support around their mental health. So I have a wide range of patients with a lot of different needs, which is exactly how I like it, as it makes my job exciting.
Within my team, there we have psychology, psychiatry, speech and language teams, occupational therapists, nursing, physios. We have a dysphagia team, admin. So important to remember the admin staff, and forensics. We also work alongside social workers, safeguarding teams, hospitals, liaison teams within the hospital. We have a reasonable adjustment service RAS team, and that's for someone who may come in but they don't quite fit within the learning disability team, but they need that extra support, so then we'll refer them to the RAS team because because they might have somewhere else for the person to get support. We work with intensive interaction and the intensive support team as well.
So I've always had an interest in learning disabilities, literally from the age of around 10. When I was in primary school, one of my peers had a learning disability, and when my friends were out at lunch playing at playtime, I would still be supporting my peer at lunch and would often help feed him, with the help of teachers, obviously, but I would always remember that he liked his pineapple and cheese on sticks. I was also really lucky to have my uncle who had Down syndrome, and I was really close to him. Although he lived up in Newcastle, we would often go and see him during the holidays, and he certainly inspired me with his wonderful sense of humour, love of football, and when he shared his own views on the world. And he would often be found at events advocating for people with a learning disability and sharing his personal difficulties, so he's a very inspirational man.
My younger sister has Down syndrome, and that comes with a learning disability as well. And when she was a baby, she became very unwell. My mum took her to hospital with a suspected chest infection. However, the consultant didn't have a good knowledge of Down syndrome or LD in general, and she experienced something that we know is called diagnostic overshadowing, which is where somebody's illness is blamed on their learning disability. And so he said, because she has Down syndrome, she's likely just to be very phlegmy and it's probably just only a cold. And where it was untreated, she then developed pneumonia and then septicemia. So she needed a tracheostomy and a lot of surgery. And as a result, her voice box is damaged and she doesn't speak anymore. And it was really important to me that this didn't happen to any other families and individuals with a learning disability. So I knew that I wanted to do something where I could advocate for those people who maybe didn't have a loud enough voice to advocate for themselves.
I chose learning disability nursing as my long-term job role due to the variations of each day. I tried various jobs, and I know from my experience that I'm not as energetic in a 9-5 job that seems the same process, which is why I like this job, because it is so different each day. You just never know what's going to happen. And I like to make a difference. Doesn't matter how small it is, I like to make a difference to an individual person.
And yeah, so I've been a qualified nurse for about 10 years now. Once I qualified, I spent 3 years in a residential home for people with a learning disability. I was the only learning disability nurse, so I was working alongside a lot of adult nurses who obviously have a very different training to us learning disability nurses. After 3 years, I really wanted to achieve my dream job, which is to become a community learning disability nurse. So that's a job that I'm in now, obviously. As when I was training, one of my placements I was put in happened to be the Daventry Learning Disability team. So I had 2 wonderful placements with them as a student and loved the whole community nurse vibe. Having your own caseload, just drive into the patients' homes, day centres, supported living homes. I love that every day is different, and I'm able to choose the way that I work, whether it's doing the majority of my visits at the start of the week and then writing up all the notes and assessments at the end, or just muddle the week up. Either way, I get to choose how my working week looks, which was a huge difference from my previous job in the residential home, where every day was the same. And after 3 years, I knew that it was my time to achieve my dream job, and I've not looked back since.
So I started off doing lots of sciences at A-level, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, much like most 18-year-olds, I think. And so I spoke to a career advisor, and she suggested that I go into biomedical science, and that's what I did. A few months into the course, I realised it definitely wasn't for me and that I needed more person contact. So I went and spoke to my tutor, who suggested nursing. I'd never heard of LD nursing at the time, weirdly, being a sibling of someone with a learning disability, but we just never had any contact with the service before. And so started my adult nursing course, became quite ill in my second year and needed some time out, but I still had that sort of niggling idea in my head that I wanted to work with people with learning disabilities. So I started doing a bit of research and found an LD nursing course. I rang the uni expecting to sort of start a year later, but they asked me to come in that week for an interview, and 3 weeks later I was on the course, and here I am now. It's what we come into the job to do, and it's our total bread and butter, and it's really hard to describe how it makes you feel. But I've supported people at their most vulnerable moments in their life. I've supported people to give birth. I've supported people who are at risk of going into prison. I've supported people to have the right reasonable adjustments made in their interactions with police. And sometimes it's just very basic things like we would take for granted, like not being able to access a GP appointment because the right reasonable adjustments are in place. So yeah, it feels really special to be able to do that for someone.
And yeah, one of the reasons I love my job so much is that I get to work closely with so many different people, whether it is someone with a learning disability or whether I'm supporting a family member of the patient. I get to be around people on a daily basis who need my help, and I'm always learning every day. I enjoy a challenge, and when I get on well with my patient and family member, it really satisfies me.
The great thing about our team is that we work with so many different professionals. So when students come in, they don't just get the opportunity to work with nurses, they can work with physios, speech and language. So lots of people that maybe in other placements, they just wouldn't come into contact. So it gives you a really good idea of how a multidisciplinary team works and how we help people with learning disabilities. You get chances to be really creative in how you make decisions around people's care and how you deliver that care. There are opportunities for professional development, to attend courses and conferences, and loads of opportunities to practice your easy read production skills as well.
Within our team, it's rewarding, variable. You'll be able to go visit, sit in meetings, participate in meetings. We could do safeguarding, go into people's home. Epilepsy. If you don't know epilepsy, you'll learn epilepsy. Trust me, quite a few people will have epilepsy. You'll have opportunities to work with other health professionals within the team and out of the team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always having students in our team and are well used to supporting them. We can offer them a real insight into what a community learning disability nurse does. Depending on what year the student is, we can also give them a small caseload of patients, as well as completing nursing assessments and so many other things. They will also be able to work alongside other health professionals in our team, not just nursing, so get a more rounded experience of working within a multidisciplinary team setting. Once qualified, there are many ways to develop and progress your career. If you work in the NHS like me, you can move from band 5 to band 6 and also obviously to band 7 and so on, and at whatever pace you want. I personally am a band 5 and absolutely love it. And if there was an opportunity further down the line, who knows, I might go on for band 6 later in my career. But there's always opportunities to progress your career as a nurse. You can also go on lots of different training courses to help develop your skills.
There are lots of opportunities for career progression. So I started as a band 5 and I've now progressed to a band 6. Everything that I've expressed an interest in wanting to do has been made available to me. I expressed an interest only a few weeks ago in doing my nurse prescribers course during one of my professional development reviews, and I've already been put forward to do that course. So the team really take into account where you see your career in the next few years and really help you to get there.
There is loads of opportunities. You can stay within your company, within your trust and progress. It doesn't mean you can stay in one area. If you can see a different band coming up, you can take your knowledge from one team to another team. There's jobs abroad, Guernsey, obviously stay in LD. You have so many choices. Don't be scared that there'll be no job at the end of it, because there will be. I had the one job working with the child at a school back in early 90s. Apart from that, I had no other experience working with learning disabilities. It was just my gut, I suppose. Something that I hadn't really considered, whether it was a program on TV that sort of thought, oh, actually, that looks like a good job. I don't know. But I wish I'd done it years ago. I really do. I wish I'd started this career many years ago.
I did. As I mentioned, I'm a sibling of someone who has a learning disability. So I spent a lot of time around people with learning disabilities throughout my whole life. I started to volunteer at a daytime support service that my sister attended, and then I became a paid staff member there. And when I started my nursing training in Oxford, I stayed with the same support service company just up here and became a support worker at a supported living service.
Yes, so as I said previously, I was fortunate to have my uncle who had a learning disability and also a school peer who had a learning disability. But also to develop my interest, I would spend every Saturday and school holidays in an activity centre. This was when I was about 13 or 14 years old, and we would often support children with a learning disability in doing games, arts and crafts, sports, and would go out on trips to the zoo, cinema, bowling, and it was just a great way for a young teen like me to meet like-minded teens who wanted to help and care for people who have a learning disability. I also had a work experience in a special needs school. I worked at several different ones and really enjoyed it. And so once I turned 18, I joined CSV, which stands for Community Support Volunteers. Basically, the idea is to give young adults the opportunity to live away from home and earn a small amount of money by doing some care work. And so I lived with a gentleman who had a physical disability, and I would spend my working days getting him out of bed, doing all his personal care, including showering him, putting him in his wheelchair. And we would then also spend a day together, often going to Brighton Pier, having coffee out, going shopping, doing all sorts of fun things. And so I was basically like a support worker, but I really gained an insight into the world of learning disabilities and living with someone who has a learning disability. And it was very clear to me that it was the area of work I wanted to be in. And I remember very well having a conversation with my mum, even to this day, when we were discussing about me going to university to train as a nurse, where she said, "What have you got to lose? Go for it." I haven't looked back since.
I'm dyslexic, so doing my assignments was not my favourite part of the university course, but there is support available. I did prefer more placements and hands-on to show my understanding. I aimed to get 40%, and anything above that was a bonus. I'm also registered disabled and I'm a wheelchair user. That doesn't mean I can't do my job. It hasn't stopped me. I do like to break down barriers. So for me, I've broken down lots of barriers to show actually you can do it. If someone says you can't, actually use that as an enforcement that actually I can, and I'm going to show you I can do it. It might not be a straight road. You might have to go around a few bends to get there, but you will do it. Maybe that's why I chose learning disability, to speak up for those who are not as loud and may struggle. My aim is to make a difference no matter how big or small. Everyone I support gets my skills, my company, no matter what their health need is. I love my job, and I hope you all experience the joy it brings when you're qualified, and then you will see what a beautiful career you have in front of you.